This is Angela Blueskies, and welcome to the next edition of Two Hands and a Heart. And today I'm so delighted to bring a really beautiful voice to this conversation. My sister Jayson is an intuitive artist, a teacher, and an author. Originally from the UK, she now lives in Westchester, New York. Jo, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you for asking me. It's lovely to be here.
So, my beautiful sister, it's just so wonderful to be together after so much time has passed since we last were together. And I'm just so delighted to share your work and your ideas with our listeners. And to start, can you tell us just about your work as an artist? How would you describe your style and your media?
I think that I would say it's a little bit of a lot of things. I would say it's figurative, obviously, and it's a little bit of symbolism, a little bit of realism, a little bit of narrative and illustrative illustration. It's a little bit of a jumble of a lot of different things. I wouldn't say it was just one thing. It's mostly oil, although, years ago when I first started, it was oil and collage when I did the chakra series, but it's evolved, and I don't do too much collage anymore. So I would say, I don't know how else to describe it. It's intuitive. I don't draw anything out. There's no preliminary drawings. There's no planning. It's just me and the paintbrush and no, actually that's not true. I do plan. I plan what with a model. I do plan that, but in terms of what the rest of it's going to look like, I don't know until I'm in it.
And for our listeners, you may want to take a moment right now and just Google Jayson so that you can see some of her astoundingly beautiful work. It will give you such a wonderful visual to go along with what she's describing as we continue our conversation.
Thanks.
I'm curious, how did your creative path first begin?
Well, I think I've always been drawing and painting. I think probably from the age of about 6, 7, and I don't think I've stopped. I think I've just continued. I went to art school for a year. It didn't last very long. I left for a number of reasons. One, mainly because I wasn't being taught anything. In the late 80s, they were very non-traditionalist. So it was very much about conceptual art, and they got rid of the life drawing studio and the life drawing models, and that kind of broke my heart, and that's really all I wanted to do. So after a year, I was a little lost, and I left the art school not achieving anything, and I decided to be a proper person and get a job. And so I moved to London. I grew up in Manchester, and I moved to London, and I worked in advertising for a couple of years as a media buyer. Hated that. And then I was at the National Portrait Gallery in London as a picture librarian, which I liked for a bit, but the urge to paint was quite loud. So I left that, and I became a muralist and a faux finisher for a well-known designer in London, and had this wonderful time of painting murals and all sorts of wonderful things in famous people's houses, and it was great. It was great.
Would they come to you with a specific idea, like on this wall I want this kind of idea?
Yeah, we were part of a team, so we would suggest things, the kind of things that they may want. But it came to murals, it was always the theme of, that's my postman posting things through
so let's back
real
up
time.
and check that out. There
Yeah,
comes the mail.
it's like he's given up.
Is it like stuck in the door?
Yeah, he's
Do
given
you want
up.
to get it?
No, no,
Okay.
it's fine.
So let's back up to you were doing murals for people in their homes and you were working with a team.
Yeah, I'm working for a team, and when it came to murals, uh, that was very much what the client wanted. And then I would sketch out ideas and renderings and stuff. And I really did love that. The faux finishing, I had a little bit more free will with that. I could do what I wanted with that. But I loved it. I had a great time, and then I moved to Sydney. I moved from London to Sydney, had my first son, did a little bit more muraling there, and then moved to New York, carried on being a muralist for a little bit. And but I have an autoimmune condition, and at that time, the hanging off scaffoldings wasn't, which I was on scaffoldings a lot when I was doing murals, doing ceilings and stuff. It was hard on my body. So that was starting to wane a little bit. The novelty of that was starting to wane. And then at the same time, my marriage started to break down a little bit, and I got this calling to do my own paintings. It all kind of happened at the same time. And the calling to do my own paintings, was pretty loud. So I ended up listening to it, and starting around about 2006, 2007, 2008, I started to create my own paintings, which was the first time really ever that I had done that.
Wow.
And I started with I did some self-portraits, and then I started with the chakra series, the Goddess Chakra series, that is, people know me for that. And that took about a year to do those 7 paintings. And I really didn't, I had no idea where any of it was going to go. I just was following the calling with that. And that's how
amazing.
that's how it started.
That's so beautiful. And I imagine that all of that work as a muralist probably exposed you to a lot of different styles and approaches that helped you to cultivate your own style in a deeper way.
It did, yeah. I did use a lot of finishes that I had used in the past. I did use a lot of that, and materials I also used, and gold leaf. I was using a lot of gold leaf in a lot of my finishes in people's homes, and so I was very comfortable with gold leaf. And my early paintings all have a lot of gold leaf on them. So very much, yeah, it did influence, for sure. And those early paintings had a lot of collage on them too. It was oil and collage, and it was a very textural in those days. Yeah.
I love it. And those paintings are so extraordinarily beautiful. Seriously, listeners, if you haven't yet Googled her work, please Google her work and continue listening from that point of view, because it will give you so much insight into what she's doing. When you were sitting there starting your first painting that was your own, what did you experience inside of yourself?
Excitement, and what I think, when you start to do something that is supposed to be your path, whatever it is, whatever creative venture it is, when you start to do it and you've created something that comes right from you, everything, feels aligned. And there's almost like a no turning back once you do that. So there was a no turning back. It was I had absolutely no idea where I was going with it, or if I could make anything successful. I was very naive. I really didn't know what, and I didn't really know why I was doing it either. I do now, but I didn't at the time. but that's what happens with callings. You tend not to question too much, and you just follow the urge. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
understand that so well from my own path
right,
too.
right. So you just follow the urge, and it just feels right. Every cell in your body says yes, and there's no doubt. And then of course you have to show it to the world, and that's a little scary for sure. But then when at least one person likes it, and encourages you to do another one.
Totally. So you said to me that you're not the usual artist because you're not in the art world.
Yeah.
And I would love to hear more about how your work and your path is unique.
In the early days, like I said, I was a little naive and I didn't really know what I was doing. And I assumed I would fit in somewhere in the art world. And I did try. I did some art expos and I did some gallery showings. And I did terribly. Mainly because I didn't realize then that I was painting, for a very niche audience that was resonating with what I was actually expressing. It took me a while for me to really figure out what was coming through me. And then didn't do well in the art world, and I didn't really fit in personality-wise, and my work didn't fit in. And so there was a lot of no's and brick walls at the beginning. And then I got invited to do a mind, body, spirit type expo, a small one. And I decided I would do it. I don't know why I decided I would do it, but I did. And I realized that all of a sudden I'd found my audience. They totally got it. And they totally resonated with them. And I was doing, painting chakra goddesses then. And so, it kind of made sense that I should do that kind of show. So, so I found my niche and I found my audience, and I really never looked back since then. And I've had little moments where I have tried to go back into the art world and failed miserably, and it really is a big no. And I have no desire. And, I have never sold a painting in a gallery, ever. I've only ever sold my own work by myself online or, in my own shows, my own expos or whatever, events. So, so no, I'm really not part of the art world, and I am, when I was doing the chakra work, when I was doing the chakra goddesses, I had, intuitively all this information that I didn't really know where it came from, but I knew so much. I didn't know how or why, and I ended up teaching workshops about them, and they went really well. And then I created the chakra meditation kit, and things just snowballed from there, really. I realized I was a teacher who happened to paint. I think. I am a painter, I guess, first. The paintings come first, but I think the paintings are teachings. So, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So the lesson is in the painting, and so yeah, that's kind of how I'm not in the art world. That answers the question.
I totally understand that. And like having a similar background on the music side, coming from classical music,
Right.
that's reproducing other people's art ultimately. And there came a moment where I knew that just wasn't my path anymore. And I also needed to take a leap into something. But at the time, I was trained as a flutist and all of these other things
Right.
that have become my path, like playing lots of other instruments and receiving songs and creating music that is medicine as opposed to music as entertainment.
Right.
It's
I
very
love that.
much similar. Like when we look beyond trying to see a creative endeavor or expression just as something to amuse ourselves, and instead see it as something to call us deeper within to understand the mysteries or to even ask better questions.
Right.
Like I don't know. For me, that's the only thing that's worth it.
And your music is very, very, very healing. It is medicine. It's a great name. It's a great label to stick on it.
Thank you.
It is.
So I would love to talk more about the sacred feminine, which is so central to your work. Can you share a bit about what the sacred feminine means to you?
Yeah. The sacred feminine is really simple. It's not complicated. It's the feminine aspect of all that is. And that feminine aspect is the counterpart to the masculine aspect. But and to define it, the feminine is that which is, receptive and allowing and compassionate and nurturing and intuitive and wise and faithful, and I could go on and on and on, but you get the idea. And the masculine is not the opposite; it is the counterpart. And we need them both. The masculine is that which is very active, whereas the feminine is very passive, and striving and strategic and analytical and logical and protective and responsible. So that there are many words to describe these two different aspects. We have both of them within us. The female form is an expression of that feminine. Masculine is an expression of the masculine. And then we see that in all living things. And so, I have used the word goddess in various aspects of my business, whether it's to describe paintings in a series or the name of my business. But I think it is confusing. I think it's a confusing name, and I don't use it very often anymore because I think it makes people think of the wrong thing. God, goddess. It really is these aspects of ourselves. And I found myself being very called by it when I first started painting, and I painted the feminine form, and I felt very comfortable painting the feminine form because it was expressing those aspects to me, that either, hard to know whether I was nurturing them in myself or whether I had them in myself and I was just reflecting them out. It's hard to know. But that is what the sacred feminine is. And it really isn't anything else. It's just that.
Simple.
Yeah, it really is. And I think it does get complicated by a lot of people, and it shouldn't be. It's very simple. And you can't have one without the other. We really do need both counterparts to be whole and to be in balance. We can't get anything done if we're completely in our feminine all day long. We get nothing done. So, and I have a very strong feminine. I'm very, very strong in my feminine, but not so much in my masculine. So I have to work on my masculine side. But there are women that have a very strong masculine and a very weak feminine, and they have to, so we're all working with whatever we need to work on.
Yeah. Has the sacred feminine always been a theme in your life?
I don't know if it's been a theme. Like I said, I've always been very strong in my feminine. When I first started painting after the chakra series, I then got this, the calling to do the 13 sacred feminine archetypes that I painted, the sacred feminine series. And at the beginning, when I was painting them, I really didn't realize what I was doing until maybe about two or three, maybe the second one, maybe that was Mary Magdalene I was painting, bringing her in. I realized that there were many other people out there doing, not necessarily artists, but writers and light workers and healers and teachers who were also working with the aspects of the feminine and teaching about it. And I found that I was part of this collective that was working towards, consciously or unconsciously, working towards lifting up the rise of the feminine. It was a movement, and I didn't know that at the beginning. So that became apparent, as I said, at the beginning, starting at the beginning of that series, which in the end took me 7 years to paint that series. And that was quite an arduous journey, for
What
sure.
spectacular work, though, that you've created from it.
Thank you.
Truly spectacular.
Thank you. Yeah, so that's the sacred feminine. So, you know, I don't know. I think it's always been there, and I've always held that aspect quite strongly within me. Yeah.
So, as you continue to follow the flow of painting, how does the sacred feminine shape your work now?
Well, you know, when I finally finished that series, like I said, it took 7 years. I did feel that I had completed something, and that what I had meant to bring out and to teach to others, I had done in that aspect. Saying that, though, you know, it hasn't left me. It's still, it's not that I'm focused on it so much anymore, but it hasn't left me. It shapes, you know, it shapes every part of my life. It shapes, you know, how I interact with people. It shapes how I bring my children up, my relationships, how I do my business. I probably could do with a bit more masculine in my business, actually. You know what I mean?
I do.
But, you know, it shapes every area of my life. So it's not gone anywhere. And I guess I continue to represent it in some way with the new work that I'm doing.
So earlier you mentioned that your path is also as a teacher. And in addition to that, you're also a writer and you offer intuitive work. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So when I finished the Sacred Feminine series, I believe it was in September 2016, I had finished the series, and I had realized that I had these 13 images that were received so well by my audience. And I'd also gone through so much in the 7 years, and I'd grown so much, and I'd received so much intuitive messages from all of those stages, those 13 stages that I'd gone through. So I put it all together, and I created a oracle deck of the 13 sacred feminine archetypes. And then I sat down to write the book. I finished the book. The book turned out to be my path back to self-love. And so the book really was me sharing that journey. And the book is called Self-Love Through the Sacred Feminine, which is exactly what it was. It was a journey back to self-love, a healing journey through these 13 archetypes. And what was really interesting was that I finished it in December 2016, and in January 2017, 1 month after, was the first Women's March in Washington and around the world, where we saw the feminine rise for the very first time in eons. And I knew then that, my work had been very much divinely guided with the timing. And I felt it all felt very complete. And I could have died happily then. I was good. I was good to go.
I'm glad you didn't.
But anyway, so the book, so I self-published the book, and then it got picked up by a publisher, which was very lovely, and got republished 2000, and I can't remember, 18, 19, I've lost track of time. And so the book is out there. And I teach. I've always, like I said, after the chakra paintings, I was always teaching. I was doing the workshops, and I was speaking, giving lectures at events, and then I did online classes, and that's really not stopped. So that's carried on and continues to carry on.
I think that's beautiful. Like going back to the whole idea that an artist creates not just something that is for amusement, but something that is for deeper exploration. It's almost like you're giving your audience a greater gift than just your work, which itself is such beautiful.
Yeah, but it initially, the initial urge is not that. The initial urge, as I'm sure it's the same for you, the initial urge is like a compelling, like a yearning to do something, to express something. And it isn't about, it never is about the end result or what's going to happen at the end or what you're going to do with it. Because I think if you start off with that, it'll never go right. So it always is like an urge to do something. Oh, I really want to do da-da-da-da-da, just for the joy of doing it. And then, it unfolds by itself and becomes what it wants to become, has a life of its own, really, after that.
I love it. During this time of pandemic, there's certainly a lot of upheaval and uncertainty, and people are seeking refuge in many ways. How does the sacred feminine continue to be a refuge for you right now?
Well, refuge is a really good word. Refuge is a really good word because the Hebrew word for the sacred feminine, the feminine face of God, is, as I'm sure you know, the Shekinah or the Shekinah, however you want to pronounce it. And the original meaning of that is shelter. Actually, is the original meaning is tent, an awning, which was used for shelter. So the sacred feminine always is a refuge for us all. But the time that we've been in, this pandemic, lockdown, quarantine time, it's so interesting. We've all been forced to stop, and we've all been forced to be quiet, and we've all been forced to sit with ourselves. And for many people, that's been very uncomfortable. For some, it's been bliss. But for many, it has been very uncomfortable and difficult and challenging. And, when you sit with yourself, you have to look at yourself. And we also have found, I think, that there have been so many people, men and women, who have sort of been swallowed up in the time before, which was a very toxic masculine timeline. And they've been on this sort of perpetual treadmill of succeeding or achieving or striving for success and things, and being a consumer and all of those things. And I think that this time has forced us, those people that have been like that, to stop and to reevaluate and to sit in their feminine, to literally not do, to not do, but just allow, so difficult for so many people to just allow that is the feminine, is just to allow what is to be, to receive whatever is coming your way and allow it, to sit with your own intuition and your own wisdom when you're in a place of uncertainty and you don't know what's next, to have faith and trust. That's the feminine. So everything that we have experienced or been experiencing in the lockdown, we have been experiencing the feminine. So the feminine has been teaching us itself. And, you know, maybe people, teachers like you and me are more used to being like that. I mean, I have found it difficult too, to be in this unknown. And I really have had to take time out from a lot of the fear that flying around, to be able to sit in this unknown and uncertainty and feel and have some faith that we're all going in the right, we're all swimming in the right direction. And so all of that is the feminine, all of it. So we are in the midst of that right now. And, you know, hopefully as we emerge to the next chapter, the plan is that we bring those feminine aspects we integrate them into ourselves, and we work with them more to balance our busy lives going forward, so that our lives are more balanced and that we have more harmony, we have more cooperation, we have more compassion. And we want to see that, you know, in our governments and our countries and our you know, the world at large.
I think that if we navigate through this pandemic without some of that happening, we will have lost a tremendous opportunity, and we will continue to perhaps destroy ourselves.
I think we'll just have to do it again.
Yeah.
Until we're very slow learners. So it'll just happen again.
Yeah.
Until we get it, you know.
So in those challenging moments where you feel the rise of uncertainty inside of yourself and around you, what helps you to navigate that and find your way forward personally?
You know, I used to give a meditation to people. I don't have it recorded or on a CD or anything, but I used to give this meditation to people, and it came from what I would do for myself. And it was about myself being on a raft on the open sea. And you know, rafts are very wobbly and bobbly, and you know, they're not very stable. And there's a certain amount of surrender that you have to do while you're on that raft in order to allow yourself to float. And when I am feeling, and I do feel many times very fearful, and you know, just because I know not to be doesn't mean I'm not.
It's part of being human.
So when I do get myself in a bit of a frenzy with that uncertainty, I do go back to that visualization of being on a raft and steadying myself by surrendering. And when you surrender, you kind of relax and let go, and just let the raft move you, rather than trying to control it and hold on to it tight. And when I do that, there is a beautiful letting go, and it is about surrender. And when you surrender, I think you can then hear yourself. You can hear the higher part of yourself that says, you know what, it's going to be okay. Because everything always is. So, you know, at the end of the day, it always seems to work itself out. And how much we resist the situation or the circumstances that we're in in any given moment is up to us. But at the end of the day, the least resistance you can give something, and the surrender to the situation, then usually allows for some kind of inspiration of the next step, in my experience.
Thank you. How do you feel this experience of living through the pandemic is shaping your work and your life?
Oh, I don't know if it's shaped my work yet, or I at least can see how it's made a mark on my work. I haven't been painting that much. I have been very much in survival mode and doing a lot of online classes and generating, business. But it has for sure made me think about what I am wanting for myself going forward. And is it what I have been doing, or all the things that I have been doing, do I want to bring them into the next chapter? And that I haven't come to conclusions yet, but I'm certainly thinking very deeply about that. Because I think whether we realize it or not, we're all evolving a little bit through this time and changing. And so inevitably things that we do are going to shift with that too. But I haven't seen the results of that yet.
Living into the mystery together, we are.
All right.
Going forward, how do you see your work unfolding and changing in general?
So now that the book is out, the Oracle deck, is my bestseller, and that's done really well. I am in the midst of my Zodiac series, which is very slow. I'm a very slow painter. I've done Aries, I've done Scorpio, I've done Libra, and now I'm in the middle of Taurus. So I have a way to go. But once that is finished, that series, still using the sacred feminine in there, by the way, as well, I will be putting them together with my other images, and the publisher will be creating a bigger and new deck, Oracle deck. So that's one of the things I'm working towards. And the other thing that I'm doing is I'm doing a lot more art tutorials. I'm teaching art in my local community to students, adults and kids, but I'm also going to be doing a lot more online art tutorials, which is, a whole different thing for me. It's using a technical skill that I have, which I never thought that I would teach, really. I never thought I would teach it because I'm really self-taught. So I had never thought of myself that I would be in a position to teach that because, everything I do, I've taught myself. But I am now doing that. So I am teaching drawing and painting going forward, and they will be on my website in the future for people.
Oh, that's wonderful. I started teaching when I was still a kid myself, and I feel like having to embody what I was doing to the point where I could explain it and help to shape someone else was its own amazing journey. And I am just so excited for the people who will be so blessed to be able to learn from you as someone who is self-taught, because the kind of experience that you have is so valuable, and that whole point of view of learning in an embodied way as opposed to a really intellectual way. I think that's
right. I've always found it quite difficult to explain my paintings because there is a lot of technical skill in there that somehow I've managed to teach myself. But there's so much intuitiveness in there too, and it's such a mixture. So this is interesting for me to be able to separate the two and just talk about, just focus on the technical the skills that I have learned myself. I'm not very good at technical terms. So if you'd ever listen to my videos, my art tutorials, there's no technical terms in there at all.
Which is probably a relief to a lot of people.
Right. But anyway, yeah, it's been an interesting process for me. I'm not completely comfortable with it, but I'm getting there, I'm trying to be brave.
I think that's awesome, like it's a growth edge. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Right. Yeah. So, and I'm still doing intuitive guidance readings, which is just the pure intuitive. I'm still doing that. For years I did it for free for customers and clients, and then eventually I started charging for that, which is a good thing. So that's still going on, and you can still call me for that.
That's awesome. And at the end of this video, there will be information both on how to find Jo's amazing book, as well as her website information, so that you can learn more about all of the amazing things that she's doing and check out her paintings.
Thank you.
As we prepare to close, I'm wondering if you would be willing to draw a card from your Oracle deck to share with us, maybe offering a message for our listeners to carry with them.
I will. I have them. I have it here. I'm going to do a quick shuffle. Not very good at shuffling, but I will give it a quick shuffle. And my Oracle deck is very simple. It's just 13 cards, and 13 being a very sacred number, particularly for the sacred feminine. So I will cut it. So I have Inanna.
Can you hold that up closer so we can really see? So beautiful.
There you go. See that?
Mm-hmm. She's holding a snake, yes?
Yeah. So Inanna is, I just did a workshop on her online. Inanna is a Sumerian, ancient Sumerian goddess, really ancient. And Aphrodite was, and a few others, Astarte, were all named, were all based on her, I should say. And she has a beautiful myth and story about, I won't go into it too much, but it's about going down into the underworld or hell, the afterlife, and shedding all of her worldly and material stuff, like her clothes and her crown and all of this, and then dying and rebirthing and emerging as the star of heaven and earth. It's a beautiful myth, but her message and her story, her wisdom, I should say, is about shedding false beliefs, disrobing yourself of false beliefs that you've put on and worn from other people in your past that don't belong to you. And it's about shedding those, which is why she's holding the serpent, because that's associated with serpent wisdom, which is shedding the skin. She's about becoming your authentic self, allowing yourself to put down all that is not yours, and standing naked in your own authenticity, and moving forward in your own truth. So and how does that relate to us right now? Well, we are in that time of sort of incubation, slowly coming out of it. And in that time of incubation, we are being forced to look at ourselves and all that doesn't serve us anymore, all that doesn't belong to us anymore. And we are being asked to be more honest and to be more authentic, and to move forward in that way. So
I love it. And what really comes to my mind in this moment is that a number of us have been on a path like that for a long time now, doing the work on ourselves and trying to really strip away the conditioning and the beliefs and the societal pressures to show up a certain way and to live a certain way. But it almost seems like this pandemic is putting pressure on us as a culture to do that, or as many cultures perhaps, to really look at the things that we need to now strip away as a culture in order to have more justice and
Yes.
more kindness and more equity and more
Yes.
peace.
Yes.
And it is my
Balance.
heart's most
Balance.
sincere prayer that will be pushed forward through this time in a big way.
I do feel that it will be. I think we might need a few tries, a few goes at this, like riding the bike. But I do think that, as we move into next year, we should start to see a shift. I think we've already seen a shift. There is a shift. It's just, not everybody's on board.
Yeah.
So, but I think we are moving there. We have to. Like I said, otherwise I do feel that we'll just have to keep doing this, keep getting these timeouts until we get it, until we learn the lesson.
And as I've heard before in my life, like each time you don't get it, the next time it comes around, it's a little harder.
It's a little louder, yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I hope that we learn before it gets harder, because this is already a really intense thing.
Well, the only thing that we can do is, be the example of what we want to see. It's the only thing that we can do, because we can't force someone else to shift or evolve. We can just do us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the final thing that I will say is that I'm in the bigger process of releasing a new album myself, and the cover art will be one of Joe's amazing paintings. And so hopefully sometime later in 2020 or even in 2021, that will come full circle, and one of Joe's most amazing paintings will be the
It's
cover.
the last one. Grandma,
Yeah,
it's the last lesson. Yeah, Grandmother's Spider. I can't wait for your next album, because your first one was like sublime, and I used just for people to know this, I used Angela's track, Star, One Star, for my video of the Sacred Feminine paintings. The 13 Sacred Feminine paintings is on YouTube, and Angela's beautiful, just haunting song is the track for that video of the images, and I'm always incredibly grateful for that.
It's a pleasure to be able to co-create with you in that way, and I thank you, and I'm looking forward to this new way of co-creating together.
Yeah,
too.
Me too.
Well, my dear sister, I thank you so much for your time today, and sharing all of these beautiful things from yourself with our listeners. And as I said before, all of our listeners will be able to find information on how to connect with Jo and her work right at the very end of this video.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. It was lovely.
Oh, truly a pleasure. Thank you all so much for being with us today, and stay connected each Friday through the end of our season for a new video. Thank you.